What's up, guys? It is Sam here, coming to you live from where I'm at. And today, we've got an awesome episode. Today, I wanted to take a look at the videos that I put out about Andrew Yang. And then I wanted to compare that to a control group and see what inferences we can draw about the demographic and psychographic behaviors of the individuals who are interested in Andrew Yang. And to start with that, I released about 17 videos on Andrew Yang and politics, mainly Andrew Yang. And the impact on my channel has been enough for me to even think to do a video like this, okay? So, I'm going to compare the past 15 days from when I released the first video to the 15 days prior to that, so we get a control group, and that's where we're going to draw those inferences. We're going to take a look at the macro and then kind of dive in deeper and deeper till we get to more of the demographic and psychographic data. So we'll start with the watch time and the views from the 15 days prior to the 15 days after releasing the videos. And then from there, we take a look at the impact on views and watch time. So we get to see the actual amount of increase. We saw that the overall trend was up, but what's happening within there? What percentage of that is from this? Is the rest of the channel going down and this is overtaking it? Is the rest of the channel going up and this is only growing by a little bit? Like, what's going on here? And then lastly, to really drive it home of like the impact that this is having, we're going to take a look at how much money I made off of YouTube ad revenue. And we're going to look at the 15 days prior to the 15 days after, which I think that's a very, very impactful one when I go through that. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. That one was kind of shocking to me. And then lastly, we're going to touch on the gender, the age, the device type, so like a computer, a console, a TV, a phone. And then we're going to look at the operating system. So some of this data might seem minuscule or trivial, but when you take it in synthesis what's going on, you get a better idea of what's happening. And I've done a lot more analysis videos if you want to check out the channel for those. So, with all of that being said, if this is your first time here, what's up? My name is Sam, and if you're returning, it's good to freaking see you. So, with that being said, let's get into it. If we take a look, the time period here is July 26th through August 10th. And then the next period, when I released the first video, was August 11th, and I have data up through the 25th, even though today is the 27th. But YouTube sometimes takes a day or two to update on the channel. So first, we're just going to take a look at views, and we have, starting with the first period, 19.9 thousand views in that 15 days. Now, the most recent period, 23,000.7, so 23,700 views in the same amount of time after releasing these videos. So a decent, I don't remember what percentage that, I think it was 24% increase in a 15-day period. That's pretty substantial. And now when you look at watch time, it's crazy. Watch time started at 43,700 minutes of content was watched during the 15 days prior. Now, after the release of these videos, it went to still 15 days, but it went to 71,700 minutes watched. I think that's a 77% increase in minutes watched in a 15-day period. For my channel, that is very substantial. Very substantial. Also, some interesting, you can see how many views you've got in the last 48 hours. And over the past 48 hours, I've reached new highs that I've never gotten to. Right now I'm looking at the live update for the total number of views on my channel within the last 48 hours, and it's 5,326. I've never had that many views in the last 48 hours, so something's going on here, clearly, right? Now, in terms of percentages of the total, so what I did here was I took the top 10 or so of these videos. Remember, I've made about 17 of them. So I took the top 10 or so videos and I added up the total number of views and the total amount of watch time for these. Because now we want to see what the impact is on this, right? We saw what it was on the total, but we're going to now understand on the segment when we look at it. In terms of views, these Andrew Yang videos actually represented over 13.3% of total views for the month from these 15 videos, and that's pretty substantial for these videos. Remember, there's 1,000 videos on here, so say 17 videos isn't even 10%, right? It's like 1%. So the 1% of these videos, the 1,000 plus videos I have on the channel, are impacting it. This 1% of videos is impacting the total by over 13%. That's crazy in terms of the views. Now, watch time also, just like the other piece, watch time, 29.3% of all watch time over the last 28 days came from these videos about Andrew Yang. That's substantial. That was like, I had 114,000 minutes over the last 28 days. And they represented, I don't remember what it was, but it was 29%. It was crazy. The people are watching these significantly longer than the other ones. Now, to really hit home, as I mentioned about the income, okay, so this is the amount of money that they say estimated revenue, but basically it's your revenue. Sometimes like it's adjusted by like a couple pennies, but I've never really had, well, I also don't make a tremendous amount of money from YouTube yet, but it hasn't never really adjusted too much from how much I actually receive. So prior to releasing any videos on Andrew Yang, it was, over those 15 days, I made $11.92, so a little under $1 a day, right? Now, the next 15 days after releasing that first video there, total revenue, meaning the total amount that I probably will earn, or very close to this, is $21.16. So that's a nice little increase. I'm going to do the math on that right now because I didn't do it in advance. Apologize, but let's see what this is. What do we got here? 11.29 divided by, what was the other number? 21.16. Holy shit, that's like 35%. Holy crap, that's a lot. Anyways, apologize for that. Now, that just shows that like how impactful it is. Now let's take a look at some of those data points that we mentioned earlier, like the gender, and see how that's changed, and the age. And then let's take a look at which device they watched on. And then lastly, we're just gonna go over the operating system, really kind of get some nitty-gritty details on the impact of these people. So what we've got here, these people, didn't mean it like that. Although the first 15-day period, we have 99% men watched all the videos, 1% represented by women. So basically it's all fucking dudes watching this channel. And what's up? Now the period after the videos came out, it was 96.1, which now the female represents 3.9%. So the amount of females almost quadrupled. That's insane in a 15-day period. Like I don't think I've ever had the female watch time up above maybe like 3.5 percent of all watch time. I've never had it. I don't think I've ever had it this high, or if I have, it was like one time for a very short period of time. So to have this many female watching Andrew Yang, I don't know if that means that there's more females watching Andrew Yang, or it's just like there was a complete desert of women that were like this was a desert. There was no fucking women watching the channel to start with, as represented by 99% men. So I don't know what this exactly tells us about it, but we are gonna take a look at the age of these individuals as well, which I found super interesting. So again, we're gonna start at the first period, and we're going to go 18 to 24. This is the age group, represented 21.4%. After, so this is prior to, and then after, it represented 22.5. So I've gotten more of the younger audience. Next, we're going to take a look at 25 to 34-year-olds, and I started with 42.4% of all of my watch time on this video, on videos on this channel, come from men or people between the ages of 25 and 34, and now it is 33.3. So I've gained more 18 to 24-year-olds as well as 25-year-olds to 34-year-olds. And then we take a look at 35 to 44. Started with 24.4% and went down 21.3%. That's interesting. So 35 to 44-year-olds went down in terms of the people watching, which is kind of interesting. Now, next we're going to move to 45 to 54-year-olds. That was at 10.3% of total watch time in the prior 15 days, versus now it is at 11.1, so that's gained about 1%. And then we go from nobody represented in 65 plus, and now 0.7% of all my watch time comes from 65-year-old plus. Awesome, thank you guys, press thumbs up for that shit. And I'm not even gonna make any jokes. So that was super interesting how the population shifted. The demographic that does not seem to be interested, according to what we've got here, and just going off of the control group and then the group we're testing, people between the ages of 35 and 44 are not as interested in Andrew Yang. According to the interpretation of this, right? Like, you could draw that conclusion. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that could be a conclusion you could draw. But he also increased people's interest who are 65 plus, which is kind of interesting. Because that group went down, but the elderly group went up. So somewhere there's a touching point for some people there. Let's go on to the device type here, and we're going to move through this pretty quickly. We've got mobile represented by 67.6% in the first period, which is 67.6% of all watch time on my channel came from a mobile device. And then that was previously, and this I'm going to draw like a little conclusion here in a second, but now over the past 15 days, it's represented 58.8%, so quite a substantial drop, and there's a lot more people watching on other devices, so that's kind of interesting. But remember when we went through the age, I would think that potentially people 65 and older may watch longer, and that might skew the data in one direction. And if that were to happen, you think that because older people are watching now, by the way, old people are fucking gangster, if any of you guys are watching now, and they might not be as familiar with a phone. So that's kind of like understood why that percentage from mobile to computer has increased, TV increased, tablet increased, game console increased. All those things increased. Also, a very interesting tidbit here is that if you compare the prior period to the now period, and you look at monetized ads, playbacks on the channel, and you compare that, right, these two groups, I don't know why I didn't put this in the video, but you compare the first part of that, clearly I don't have a life and this is all I do, to the second part of that, and completely lost on a train of thought there. The control group represented an ad 23% or something like that. Basically 1 out of every 4 was a ad in terms of views on the channel. When it came to the Andrew Yang videos, they were 48%. So more than twice as likely to see an ad watching the Andrew Yang content, and that is also impacted in the total revenue numbers that I just shared with you a few moments ago. Now we're going to take a look at the operating system that has shifted, and this data I actually have not, I haven't taken a look at this personally. All the other stuff I basically looked at, but this is going to be looking at for the first time. So we're going to look at iOS is actually number 1 in both, so it didn't change there. But iOS went from, let's see, 38.3% of all watch time on the channel came from an iOS device. So they went from 33.3 to 33.1. So what we can draw is a conclusion that people who like Andrew Yang do not like iPhones. Just saying. Sounds like a logical conclusion for me that people who like Andrew Yang do not like iPhones. Let's just take a quick look at Android. Android went from 34.4% to of all watch time on the channel came from Android. And then the most recent, wait a second, iOS went from 38.3 to 32.9. Oh man, I actually misread this. Android gained a lot of market share, but this also just goes off of the thesis that people who like Andrew Yang do not like iPhones, because it shifted after my channel was mainly iPhone users, and now it's mainly Android, and that is thanks to Andrew Yang, because he clearly has a following that does not like iPhones by this data. Let's take a look at one last thing here, and we're going to look at the Windows, because that's the next biggest category. It went from 14.2% to 18. So a shitload more people are watching on computers, which would also tie into the last two things that we talked about in terms of the age, right? If an average age of people watching your content, you would expect that some people are just not as familiar with mobile technology or as comfortable watching it on their phone, and they might watch it on other things. This is indicated by the operating systems as well, to have a large increase on Windows. That would also tie into this. And the same thing with the device type, right? Because we saw more on the television, we saw more on the tablet, more on the game console, and more on the computer. So this all kind of ties in together, but it is really interesting to draw some of these, you know, obviously conjecture conclusions that I do from the data. But as this continues to grow, I will maybe do another update video. So if you want to see that, just let me know down below in the comments. And maybe every week I could just check back and we could see, or every 2 weeks, and see what is going on, and if this has had an even bigger of an impact on the data, because we could just extend it as we went out 30, 60, 90 days and then compare it to the previous 30, 60, 90 days and see what that's like. So if you want to see that video, let me know down below in the comments, because that'll be an interesting play out over the next several weeks, because I'm going to be putting out more content. Speaking of content, if you enjoyed this or had any, if you basically got any value from this video, share this with somebody, please. It helps out the channel a lot. Or press that like button if you don't want to share it with anybody. That just helps out the channel, so it tells YouTube that somebody's interested in this video, and it will put this video in front of more people. So if you're still here at this point, just press that thumbs up button. Appreciate it a lot. Don't forget to press that subscribe button and the little bell notification if you want to see other videos like this. If you want to see something completely different, head over to my Instagram. On Instagram, I primarily talk about all sorts of shit on the stories, but I generally post almost every day, multiple times a day on the stories, but the feed is completely different than YouTube. It is primarily focused on fitness and traveling type things. So appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Peace.